Robert is one of the world's foremost experts on counter threat intelligence and vulnerability research within the information security industry. He has led or been involved in information security assessments and engagement for the better part of 20 years, and he is credentialed in many of the top IT and information security disciplines. In addition, he is known to be one of the most influential cybersecurity advocates and passionate industry voice. I had a great pleasure to discuss current events from his personal whiskey room. I hope you enjoyed this. Why don't I talk about maybe my top 5 shit disturbing activities that I'm involved right now. And I thought it would be absolutely fantastic if we kind of covered those. And then what I also did, Chris is a prolific writer and kind of blogger, and he shares a lot of his ideas on LinkedIn. And what's amazing about this is that aside from the content, which is really good, there's also really interesting images that are very intriguing. So what I did is I capture some of those in a kind of a slide format, and what we can do is we can every once in a while I'll share one of these, and then we can kind of trigger
some of those images. Some of those images take longer to either find or put together sometimes than the damn blog posts. It's a pain in the ass. It's fun, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, to find these. Yeah. Can everybody hear him pretty well? Or just is the volume okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, fantastic. Cool. So let me see if I can bring up my first one. And let me see if I can do this real quick. So
have to see how this works. This will be fun. So what do we? Because it's 3 o'clock here now, 5 o'clock in your part. Oh, Jesse. Oh, bless. So that is that was taken several years ago. So obviously everybody's seen Hillbilly Hit Squad. So Hillbilly Hit Squad is the company that I have behind the scenes, a research company. And the reason we have Hillbilly Hit Squad is because of that individual right there. So that's Jesse. Absolutely freaking amazing guy. And he's hugging my mum. And as you can probably tell, that's down at the Stonehenge, which is about 30 minutes from where my mum lives. And he was over in the UK. I think we were over in Norway. He and I were over in Norway giving a talk on hacking tractors and farms and everything else, and how I am and how a lot of us are in this computer world. Jesse is in the electrical and mechanical engineering world. I mean, he's absolutely freaking amazing. This guy knows more about hit and miss engines from the 1800s and tractors all the way up to modern jet engines and just crazy shit like that. And this is. He and I met in a friend's garage. I was actually wandering over to the friend's garage, and he was disassembling an AR-15 in the bloody garage. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, only in this bloody country would you find this going on. First words out of his mouth, he just turned around to me, looked at me, and said, didn't we get rid of your lot in the 1700s, red coat? And we hit it off from there. He's just amazing. I have so much love. He's basically a brother.
That's amazing. And Stonehenge is amazing. I don't know if anybody had a chance to be there.
Yeah,
and,
I remember it years ago when we used to be able to actually crawl over the stones and jump off the top of the bloody things, but they get a little bit miffed at you these days if you do that. And obviously that's my mom next to him, so yeah, my poor suffering mother who puts up with all of my crap. So my mother, like all mothers, my mother addresses me how is it going, Chris, and everything else. And if when I appear in the newspapers in the UK, it's Christopher, what did you do? And then there have been a couple of Christopher Johns when I hacked NASA and some other bits and pieces that I got the full Christopher John Roberts kind of conversation. I appeared in the Daily Mail and all sorts of other things who are doing crazy stuff.
Next one. This is from one of your postings as well.
Yeah. So I actually took that. So Gabrielle, and there's an amazing crew over at Wiser Training. So the nice thing, since I've left it, so when I came out to see you guys in January, I was slowly exiting Ativo. And I came out of a TiVo, and I've gone back to doing kind of what I enjoy, which is helping out a bunch of different companies. And that one is from an amazing, just a freaking amazing individual, Gabrielle over at Wiser Training. I'm actually helping those guys out. So doing a bunch of stuff. I'm actually in the middle of actually putting a whole bunch of stuff together of literally hacking grandma. So I'm helping them build this entire game where you get to put together like a scam letter on whether you want to be nice to grandma, scare grandma half to death, or, and just helping everybody understand how scams work and all these different things. So that's from that one, because Gabrielle's an amazing artist. I have a ton of love for somebody who can draw.
So, and before we jump into the next one, I want to, one of the things you mentioned, and I think we're going to chat about it briefly, but you were involved in an incident where you had to hack into social media tool. I think it was the Snapchat or
last week. Yeah, that was a busy night. Yeah, I got it was actually on LinkedIn.
Yep.
A friend that I've been talking to on LinkedIn on and off for quite a long time, he hit me up it was like 9-10 o'clock at night and said, "Hey, I've got a problem. Any chance you can help?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's LinkedIn. I'll stick my head into it." And a friend of the family of his, their 13, 14-year-old kid had unfortunately run away that previous night, early in the morning, and had gone completely AWOL. They turned all their signals off and everything else. I'm like, okay, standard instant response. What have you done? Where are you at? What's the situation? And all these other things. Got them to go give the police a ring and say, okay, look, this is what's going on. And we worked through it. And what I ended up doing, long story short, was managing to break into their Snapchat account, turn ghost mode off, dump to their entire config so I could start to track where they'd been. For good and for bad, Snapchat has keeps an entire litany of stuff on where you've been over the last period of time. Started to track it down and pointed the police in the right direction. And then somebody else was monitoring it so as soon as she logged back in again, we got the final IP address, and they send the Blues and Twos boys out to go get her, and then obviously detain the individual she was with.
And so I think you Dan, I think that's, I don't know if that's triggered, you wrote a blog post specifically about kids and the exposure to, so what's your take on that? I mean, there's a lot of that going on right now. I mean, we can't really stop it. No. I don't know if they can control it. I don't know. What's your take on it? If you have any thoughts about where this is going?
It's tough. I mean, it's really because Chris Nickerson put an amazing post. Like he put a comment and a link to TikTok and the issues and challenges of privacy there, or the absolute lack of privacy that they have. And Snapchat's the same way. It's definitely a double-edged sword. To me, it was useful to be able to dump everything, get configs, to then literally hand it to the police and also be able to track this kid down. But the flip side is it disgusts me and scares the hell out of me that there are so many people literally handing their entire life into these applications, and the apps are doing what apps do. I mean, they're monetizing the information. Hey, you're close to this place, go check this out. Hey, you're close to this, go do this. Hey, you're close to this friend, or hey, you're searching for this, let me help you by giving you what we get paid to give you. So I mean, my daughter uses Snapchat, but she's very, very careful what she turns on, what she says, what pictures she takes. But even the pictures, I mean, it's easy enough to pull all the pictures back. It scares me half to death, but we're not going to stop it. To your point, the best we can do is educate people and help them understand. There are definitely benefits. There's a use to actually understanding what's useful to me, but it comes at a price of privacy, or what we have left of privacy.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that should be taught in school right now? Is that something that it's
yeah, I mean, I would, if I had my druthers, I would be taking the kids coming out of K through 12, especially the younger end, and having conversations with them at their level. I mean, we would have to get some amazing educators and people that could help us craft the message. But absolutely, I think we need to have those conversations with kids about the good of the internet and how amazing it is, and the communication and collaboration, but also here are some of the challenges, here are some of the things to look out for. Because, Innocent Lives Foundation does absolutely amazing work on tracking down predators, but you just don't know who you're talking to on the other end of the line. If it is somebody who's my age, if I'm a kid, or if I'm talking to, in this case, a predator that's got a known record, it sucks.
Yeah, and I think now even with the the COVID-19, since kids basically have no other ability but to be online, there's probably even explosion of that. So they basically turn it on first thing in the morning, and then they go in and out of it the whole day. So the adoption of social media applications have actually exponentially grown just in the past 6 months.
I think some onus and some responsibility should be put on like the parent or the guardian. No two ways about it. I mean, I've made the effort to talk with not talk to my daughter, but talk with my daughter about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the onus needs to be put on the parents to be able to understand it. If I'm handing you literally a machine that can talk to any single one person on the planet, and also potentially affect other things on the planet. So to me, that comes with a set of warning labels and a set of responsibilities. But again, if we're going to do that, then how do we teach the parents or the guardians how they can have those conversations? So, is it a child conversation at school? Is it a parent conversation at school? To me, I think it's all of those. I think it's all of those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you tracking? Do you have any tracking software running on their mobile?
On Mo, no. I've got tracking software that runs in the house and that runs on the firewall, and it looks for, certain stuff. But I told my daughter, I said, look, I will trust you up until a point I cannot trust you. And at that point, we will have to have A, a discussion, and B, we'll have to do something about it. But I'll trust you because, I mean, we all know this as kids that are growing up. It's like, I can't always be there to catch you before you fall. My job as a parent is to help you ask the right questions, is to help you think about what the next step should be, and to try to stop you from tripping over, quite as often as I did. And I want to do that more often than be punitive. I have stuff at the firewall, so I mean, I know what I do and I know what she does. She's 16. I'll give her a lot of credit. Thankfully, she's got a freaking head screwed on for the most part.
Well, good thing you don't rely on zero trust there in that particular one.
I couldn't implement zero trust in this house. I mean, we were joking about this on network, and I'm like, I've got a whole bunch of like VLANs and segments and networks. It wouldn't work. I got so much crap coming in and out of the network. It's fun.
Right. Good. So I have one other one coming up. So what is this?
Yeah. I see it coming up on the small screen. I'm waiting for it to come up on the big screen. This is the cow on the pole with mooses, with moose. Oh God! So there are three of us getting together tonight. Years and years and years ago, there was a podcast that was put out by some absolutely amazing people in 303, and it was like no holds barred, no bullshit, just holding the industry accountable. And really, it was more of a rant. So Evan Frankel's over at like FR Secure, and Ryan Coulter, who's another, I mean, just two amazing individuals, just freaking amazing people. Right, Evan got hold of me. He's like, look, I want to do a podcast. I'm like, cool. He's like, no, I want to do a podcast with you. We are going to do a podcast. And I'm like, oh God, I never want to do one of these myself. I have the utmost respect for you for doing this because it's a pain in the ass to do. I don't want to do it. Evan was like, look, I'll do the heavy lifting. I'll get it together. But he's like, look, I want to get the three of us together on a weekly-ish basis and not just talk about the State of the Union, but bitch and scream for 15 minutes and just no holds barred. I am so looking forward to roasting Clown Strike tonight. I've got the freaking flamethrower running, and there will be swearing, and I'll get a cease and desist letter again from them. But crucially, then spend the bulk of the talk going, how do we solve the problem? How do we deal with this? A perfect example would be, almost every single security company under there goes out to you and says, hey, I can solve all your problems. Well, that's great, but where's the accountability? What happens when you fail? Where is that accountability? And there is none in it. There really is none in our industry.
Is there? Well, it's part of a EULA that they make the customer sign. We're basically saying they have no responsibility if this blows up.
You're screwed. Have a nice day. We're still going to take all of your money. Yeah. So it's a lot of stuff like that we're going to go, okay, look, the power has to be back in the hands of the people. When you look at that end user licensing agreement, here are the 20 things to look for. So we're going to pick a topic. I have no clue. I mean, we've got a number of topics we're going to talk about over however many episodes. But yeah, it's no holds barred. There will be, this is not PG suitable, is on the, it definitely, there will be no bleeping. It will just be pure out. What the beep?
So what is this? This is an operator, obviously, with several, and I think we touched upon this briefly yesterday as well.
Oh, my Gideon. Yeah. So I think this was yesterday I posted this out because I got to a point, I actually deliberately kept tabs of all of the different, chat and conferences and stuff I have. I mean, the computer in there has got windows open all over the sodding place. And to me, I'm like, how the hell do we do this? How do we get ourselves to a point where we have 6 different chat message groups, 5 different ways of visually talking to each other, 4 or 5 different freaking web browsers, 3 or 4 collaborative platforms. And by the way, you're probably in the same boat as I am. It's like I have to keep tabs on all of them because I've got clients on one and clients on another, meetings. I'm like, how the hell did we get to this shit? For God's sakes, why can't we consolidate this crap together and actually have one uniform platform? I don't care if it's 15 underneath it. Just give me one uniform interface.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's going to happen. And what's happening now is that you have a preference depending on, now I see enterprise banning Zoom. WebEx has its own problems. In fact, I had a client trying to connect on the Apple today, Apple computer, and it connected with WebEx and just would not load. Lots of problems, but I don't know if the problem is going to be solved anytime soon. But it's like it's like power. I think talked about it. If once it's standardized to 110 with a certain socket, and then all the manufacturers were able to support it, that's when it really took off. There should be some sort of standard. I agree. So the next one,
I think to me, and we had this. It was actually a really good discussion up on LinkedIn, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you want to make one platform?" I'm like, "No, I don't." But I want one consolidation point. If you want to love Zoom, if you want to love Cisco, God forbid you want to love Cisco, then go have at it. But for those of us that have to use them all, I want one consolidation point. Yeah. Oh man, I couldn't help it. That was I was having a little bit of a conversation about what the hell was I talking about on that one. I'm trying to think. That actually took some work to put together. There's a really cool T-shirt that I picked up. Gosh, I want to say last year at DEF CON or B-Sides or somewhere. Joe Gray, that's who it was. God, I was trying to think who it was. Joe Gray, another amazing individual. He got a whole bunch of these I think it was Joe anyway. He got a whole bunch of these T-shirts. I lost and it had a blank space. Can I have yours, please? And so, it was all these conversations around, social engineering, human engineering, and then all of the issues between, the conversations between a hacker and a cracker and a criminal and an adversary and the sloth and then the lazy ass beep, MF, and how they don't all deserve to be called. It pisses me off that people get called hackers anyway, because that's us. We're actually here helping people. But I think what frustrates me is we confuse, if you got socially engineered into clicking on a link, oh my God, I got hacked. Well, actually, no, you didn't. You had some lazy ass person who probably sent you one of 10,000 different spams, and this was the one that resonated. That's actually not clever hacking. That is literally a lazy ass person who is harvesting you. You're basically a crop. As humans, we are nothing more than a crop. to these people. And so I think this was really trying to quantify the difference between those of us that are trying to work, an adversary who is always going to get in, and basically the farmer and the lazy ass person who's basically just preying on the fact that we keep clicking shit.
Is the farming also done, to enterprise, or is it strictly, do you think it's done just to anybody? Like, do you think?
I think it's in anybody. I mean, it's enterprises obviously, because you can still pull data out of those, but I think and I think a lot of it depends on what somebody's going after. So you're definitely going to see the opportunistic people going after enterprises, but a lot of the enterprise stuff is at least somewhat savvy enough to not be this daft. Whereas most people wouldn't think twice. This game that we're putting together for the Wiser crew is going to prey upon this, and we'll do it different ways. I'll be like, hey, you won. Congratulations. You didn't actually win the main lottery. So I'll set expectations low. You didn't win the main lottery. That was advertised on television. But because of COVID, we've created a secondary set of lotteries. And we put everybody's name in the United States. And because we're nice people, you've won. And you've won, $250,000 US. And in order to do that, we actually just want to validate you are who you are. So if you could please send us, your identity so we can validate what we have in the database. Please make sure it's spelled correctly. Send me your address. Do me a favor. We have your social security number, but because we have to pay taxes on your behalf, please send us your social security number so that we can actually make sure that you are completely legal when we send you your funds. How many people will click on that and go, yes?
Yep. And then we talked about having to ask the one more question.
Right? I mean, absolutely.
That's something that a lot of this stuff could be avoided if people
I mean, that's literally the mantra for our world is, just ask one more question. The director of the FBI is not going to send you an email asking for you to send them a whole bunch of prepaid Visa cards. We don't work that way, no matter how broke the government is, because we keep borrowing or printing more trillions. We're not going to ask for your $200 in prepaid gift cards. I just wish as humans we actually thought and then maybe reacted. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like this one too.
So this is an interesting one, right? So you're talking about, hacking the human.
Yeah.
Right. So this is all about.
This was nasty. I got nasty on that. I was nice, but I was also nasty. For two reasons. One, because I've been working on hacking humans for a number of years. I'm actually starting to really, really look at it harder. But the other reason that I got a little nastier on this one is if you think about where ransomware is at the moment, ransomware goes after your computer, goes after your systems and everything else. To me, the next evolution of ransomware is going to look at the human itself. You think of all the embedded technology we're putting into our bodies. You think, the replacement knees, the heart valves, the sensors, the monitors, the Alzheimer's chips, maybe the ones for the in-ear stuff. I literally start sending out mass emails instead of me harvesting data from you, which takes extra work. All I do is I can dump the medical database, which, let's face it, isn't that freaking hard. Figure out who's got an implant, or I go out to the manufacturers and figure out who's got the implants. And then from there, I just send out a mass set of emails going, hey, I'll turn your implant off or pay me $1,000. I don't want any more money than that, because I'll come back in 6 months' time and I'll do the same thing again. Hey, the manufacturer you used didn't patch your implant, or you haven't upgraded your implant, because, that means, I don't know how you reboot a human. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. But, you haven't patched your implant, or you haven't been in, and I'll take another $1,000 from you, please. Or I'll turn it off.
So I mentioned that, potentially you can have kind of almost the reverse one, I think, which we really liked. I mentioned that, let's say you have an implant to, provide microdose of, testosterone or like some other, and I would say, okay, you pay me $500 and I'll upgrade the software on it so it runs a little faster, so you get like 20%.
I think that's freaking awesome. I mean, I do the same thing to my cars. I tune my cars. Either I'll plug in an ODB2 socket and upgrade the ECU architecture, or I'll go out to, any of the fun places and, download the maps and have fun with the maps and run with the ECUs. But, Yeah, could you imagine doing that to a human? It'd be freaking hilarious.
Yeah, you just
Um,
dial it up a notch, like just,
It'd be absolutely fun. I mean, there's definitely some, it's a risk thing, but again, it's like you sign the disclaimer. I promise I won't blow up my engine. I promise I won't destroy my body. We're all going to sign it. I mean, let's face it, it's going to get signed.
Yeah, it's just going to raise your heartbit by 10%. Don't worry about
it. Oh, man.
So this is an interesting one. Talk about email etiquette.
This is another oy vey moment.
Yeah. So I'm assuming some of it.
There's an organization I'm doing some work for at the moment, and I love them, but there's some work to do from a maturity and a process standpoint. And so I had to create, I haven't had to do it in a number of years, but I had to create a CC folder. So any email that I'm on the CC line to, not addressed to, it just goes straight in the folder. The chances of me ever seeing it is about 0. And I'm like, okay, why is this happening? And to me, it was happening because we don't think, again, it's the human thing. We don't actually think, when we're sending somebody an email, we want to send it to 20 people, but really we only need to send it to 2. So, let's get that sorted out. When we CC people, do you care? Do you not care? Just simple stuff that we've forgotten. The subject line should not be half a paragraph of telling me what's in the bloody email. And I mean, I don't get as many emails as Jen. Jen came back from riding the horses the other day. She had 350 emails in her inbox, and she'd only been gone a couple of hours. I'm like, I don't know how you deal with it. I would throw the computer out of the window. And so she and I were talking about it, and I'm like, how much of the emails do you read? And she's like, most of it. I'm like, I don't. I got to be honest. If I go through the first paragraph or even the first couple of sentences and you haven't got to the point, I'm not going to read the rest of it because I just don't have the time. Yes, the same thing with LinkedIn. I get some amazing messages on LinkedIn, but there are some people who send me like 4 paragraphs of stuff on LinkedIn. I'm like, I haven't got freaking time to read that. I want to take the time, but if you can't talk to me in short and sweet bullet points, that's going to be a problem. So I put this together basically as email etiquette. I've yet to send it to the internal part of the company, but we just took an HR person on board. So I'm probably going to send it to them and say, if you want to make this more civilized, we probably need to do something about it.
This is also an interesting one. So I'm assuming this is your
house? That's the other room. That's the other half of the room.
Oh, okay. And there's a cookie jar here. Is that it?
Yeah, that's my dog cookie jar. That's actually not mine. That's dog biscuits. And I can't have my snacks that close. I actually have to get up and walk to get to my snacks. If I had them that close, I'd be 400 pounds and I wouldn't move.
Well, you have Great Danes. I'm assuming they can reach this.
Oh, right? Yeah. One of them's figured out how to open it, but she's scared the living daylights out of herself because she managed to open it and then it closed down and made a clanging sound. She hasn't been back since. She'll come in, but if I go anywhere near that cookie jar, she bolts. She's out. They're both rescues, but she was an older rescue. She's not good with like high-pitched sounds. So Milo, on the other hand, will literally just walk up to it and put his nose right up against it until I pay him attention. Or he'll just be like, he'll whine, and then he'll just stand there just looking at the cookie jar.
So before we kind of jump into this particular topic, what's up with this? Is this a Concorde, the silhouette?
Yeah. Yep. It's a silver, like I don't know, it's yay big of Concorde. It's pretty awesome. I love it.
Yeah, so what's the story behind that? I mean, it's a cool plane.
It is. It was given to me as a gift years ago, and I just love it. I mean, obviously, my father was British Royal Air Force, so he was British military. I was fortunate to fly on Concorde once, which was an amazing experience. And so, it's one of those. I have an affinity for engineering, for the sake of engineering, when it's done to basically prove a point, which is, let's face it, what Concorde was done for. And it's just amazing. And it's a shame that we don't have, in the civilian world, we don't have anything at that level anymore for, all sorts of reasons. But I'm actually overly enamored with it. I'm really good with this and I'm good with these. But when it comes to, that's why I love Jesse, when it comes to building stuff and making stuff and doing stuff, I'm not wired that way, but I have an amazing appreciation for anybody that is. And I don't care if you're building a house or repairing something or building Concord. I'm fascinated by it. I think it's absolutely amazing.
So what's the story behind the blog? I mean, you mentioned, I think, that we don't need stuff. That's one of the, I think it was.
Yeah, it says the guy that's, got an entire room full of whiskey and another room full of, yeah. Actually, so what it is.
The kettle calling the, what's it, black? The kettle
yeah,
calling
pot calling kettle black on this one. So the logic for this one was simple. I love my music. I kind of live or die by my music, especially when I'm working. I'm very fortunate. I got a really nice pair of over-the earphones, so when I'm sitting at the desk, I can work on stuff. But I wanted to get like a music system back in the house. I used to have a really, really nice one years and years and years ago, but I wanted to put another music system like in that space. And so I'm like, okay, let's go do that. And so there are some nice stores around town here, and I went into some of the stores and I'm listening to some of the speakers, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, these are really nice. I've got, for whatever reason, I've got really good ears when it comes to music and attunements and stuff. And so I'm listening to a fairly nice pair of speakers. And I'm like, okay, what's the damage? He's like, well, they're $35,000 a pair. I'm like, oh. And he's like, we have the upgraded focals. He's like, those are, they were 50,000 each. And obviously with speakers, you kind of need two of the damn things. And so I'm like, okay, so, let's just go with the cheaper ones, the $35,000 ones. What do I need from an amp standpoint? And he's like, well, we use this one, and we use this one, and we use this one. But we recommend the Macintosh ones are this, and this. And they were 15,000 each. And if you monoblock them, you're at 30,000 for that. The DAC unit that they were using was $5,500–6,000. The cables were another, $15,000–20,000. And you're sitting for what I would argue is not an amazing system. It's only an okay system. You're sitting close on, $80,000–90,000 for a music system. I'm like, holy shit. I get it. I get the logic. I absolutely understand it. But number one, I don't have that money to throw around. And number two, I don't think I would ever do that unless money was absolutely no object. In other words, I donated a shit ton load of money and I just had a stack of it sitting in the corner that was mine. And I'm like, okay. And I challenged myself. I'm like, look, years ago, I built an old system up. So I challenged myself. I went out to Craigslist. I went out to eBay. I went out to the local pawn shops. I talked to a couple of the resale places here in town as well. Ended up finding those Infinity reference speakers. And they're late 80s, mid-late 80s. They've been refoamed, retuned. They're Emmett tweeters and mid-range. So there's just this amazing soundstage, huge clarity, but they're power hungry. So you need decent power. Well, I found an Adcom amp online that had been absolutely totally reconditioned. Like the guy just gutted it and rebuilt all the electronics. And so I got hold of him and I bought it on eBay and it shipped, but it shipped from Cheyenne, which is an hour and a half north of me up in Wyoming, and it's literally across the freaking border. So I ended up, I did my normal. I Googled him and figured out who he was, and we got talking. And just this amazing old retired guy, former electrical and mechanical engineer guy who built houses as well, and now just repaired these things for shits and giggles. So I got hold of him, and he had a pair of the monoblocks. They're Adcom 565 monoblocks, and these things, I mean, they're beasts. They're 300 watts at 8 ohms, linear down to like almost 600 at 4 ohms, and like 800 odd watts at 2 ohms. So they power those beasts with plenty of headroom. And he was rebuilding them. I'm like, look, what do you want for them? I'm really interested in them. And he's like, well, they'll be a little bit more expensive. And I'm like, and there's me. I'm like, I know how much they are normal, and I know how much these brand new freaking things are. And the pair of monoblocks together, totally, completely rebuilt, like absolutely every freaking component tested and rebuilt, was like $2,300. You can't buy good Class D or Class C, let alone Class A or Class B amps for that price. And I'm like, and I said to him, I said, look, are you sure that's all you want? Because, I mean, there's a shit ton load of work that he put into these things. And he's like, yeah. And so I bought them, I've plugged them in, and I've curled up on the sofa, and I've just been loving my music.
So that's the story behind this one. So this is an interesting one. Tell me what this is all about. It's made in China. Is that what you wanted to tell everybody that don't
What the heck
buy
was I talking about? I can't remember what I was talking about. What was I talking about on that one?
Here, let me just.
I'm going out to LinkedIn while we're talking. I'm going out to LinkedIn because I can't remember what the hell that one was on about. It's typical me. It's just like, what the hell am I talking about on some of this stuff?
And this is the stuff that we talked about before, like the fact that we have, kids. I think this is what you're talking about specifically about Snapchat.
Let me have a look. I'm intrigued. I'm actually going out to my posts now because I'm like, what the heck was I actually talking about?
I can't remember. I went through.
No, it was the NDA. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh god, that was fun. Yeah, I went on a bit of a rant. Only because again, when I left the TiVo, it's like, all right, what am I going to do? And it was like, I'm obviously working on my own now. I'm working with a bunch of fantastic companies, but obviously, when you work for a company, you go through all the NDA discussions, all the MSA, and then all the statement of works. And there's some lawyers and there's some NDAs out there which are interesting specimens. And this was, again, we typically don't read what we sign. You talk about end user licensing agreements and everything else. Who the hell reads those things? I was talking to a company about Discord. They wanted to use Discord for doing some work. And I'm like, have you read Discord's privacy policy? And they're like, no. I'm like, go take a minute or two and read it. And they came back and they're like, well, we get it, but what does that mean? I'm like, well, it means that everybody can read anything. Nothing that you have is safe. And anybody at any point in time, almost inside Discord, can read all of your private messages. And they're like, yeah, that won't work for healthcare. I'm like, yeah, no shit. And we just don't read. And the problem is we don't read and we sign things, and that's when it gets us into trouble. So I took an NDA to pieces and, and just had a little bit of fun with it. But the idea was to try to get people to think that when you sign one of these things, it's a commitment. And it literally is like a pair of handcuffs. And depending upon whether those are plain handcuffs or fluffy handcuffs is going to depend upon how well you read that thing and how well you negotiated it.
Well, these are fluffy pink, and they are
fluffy pink handcuffs. Yeah, those are, because of some of the work that I do, I have a number of sets of handcuffs, and I have pink handcuffs that have had to go on people before.
Okay. Listen, so this is also interesting. I think you talk about specifically about healthcare and some of the risk associated with it. I think we talked about it.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I went online. I was trying to find like the early version, and somebody was selling an early copy of Operation. And it's kind of like how our games from 30, 40, 50 years ago have become reality. The amount of technology we're putting into our bodies, the amount of augmentation that we're doing, the amount of we just keep doing this stuff. And to your point, now can I seriously sit here with a wireless antenna or an RFID signal and edit my own body or do anything to myself? And the argument is possibly yes, and that's a little scary.
Yeah, there's a lot of body modifications now. This is also an interesting one. Unicorn meat.
Yeah, I was having a bad day, actually a really bad night. I go through for all of this and for all of these conversations. I'm not a human friendly person. My background is military, and I saw a lot of things that I just don't like humans for. Humans are not nice, unfortunately. And I saw a lot of things that made me kind of like give up on humanity. And, especially in this world, that there's a part of me occasionally that goes back to that slightly darker side and is like, you know what, when will the machines take over? Because we can't look after ourselves effectively enough. And I think this was one of those. This was kind of like a call to action. I'm like, look, we've been at this for 20, 30 years and we're losing more data. We're spending more money. What the hell are we doing wrong? And what do we do about it? How do we change this? There's a few of us, and I think there's more and more people now, but there's a few of us talking about it. It's like, look, we've got to change. We have to do something different. we cannot keep going down the same route. We cannot chase technology and ignore the people and ignore the process. We just can't keep doing that. But we do, for whatever reason, we keep doing. I think, the lockdown and the corona thing is going to be interesting to see if we come out of this a little more human-centric and thinking about people a little bit more than we have done. I think this is maybe reset. If people actually introspectively look at what has happened to humanity in the last, 6 to 8 to 12 weeks, I hope we will learn some lessons. I don't have a huge amount of faith that we will, but I have hope that maybe we do.
Yeah, interesting you brought it up. But so you mentioned the fact that we're social distancing, that's actually going to get us, closer together, or let us think about what's important. And
I think it makes us think about what's important. We've spent so many years. I mean, you think about it. This society that we live in is a consumer society. We are told to feel good for ourselves. We have to spend money to accumulate toys. That whole he or she who has the most toys win mentality was very much 80s and 90s. But if you think about it, it's still pervasive here. I mean, it really is. Do you have the latest phone? Do you have the latest tech? Are you on the latest system? Do you have this gadget? Do you have that gadget? You need these gadgets to make your life work. You need the Roomba to get all your shit done. And, you need the house. You need this, the American dream of the land, and all this kind of crap. No matter which way you slice it and dice it, it's still being fed to us. And yet when we are isolated and surrounded by those very things that have been fed to us, we feel alone. And I hope that people have reflected upon that and go, actually, what matters are people. What we should care about more is stuff like this. You and I just hanging out and talking. I'd love to be doing it across the table from you or in the same room as you. And I should be yearning for that, not for another piece of freaking technology, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And I think a lot of people finding themselves, yearning for that human interaction. I think that's something that's not necessarily seems like almost like something that we took it for granted, completely trivial. People are looking to establish that and appreciate it even more. So this is interesting one. I looked at this, and I don't know what the story behind this. I can't remember if I had a chance to read it, but this is a bad scene. So
yeah, we've all been there though. I mean, I know I have. I used to rally drive in the UK, and there were a number of times that we didn't actually crash into the side of a house. We went into a garden a few times. We went into fields. We ended up upside down a number of times. But there's always that moment, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you just send the flaming email telling the client that you're done with them and they're a pain in the effing ass. There's always that moment of, oh shit. And there's nothing you can do. You are a passenger, and you just got to live through it, and you just got to own up to it, and you just got to learn from it. And I think part of this one was, we have to own up to, we've got to own our own mistakes. We have to live up to our own mistakes. The whole thing with breaches, rather than going to find somebody to blame with a breach, go look in the freaking mirror and go, what did I do? What could I have done better? What could I have done differently? How can I learn from this? And how can I improve? How can I be better than I was? How can I do something different? And for me, that whoever was in that driving seat was sitting there as the car lost control, as they were going off the road, and as they were heading for this house, they were reliving in absolute slow motion every single freaking microseconds decision that led up to that, be it showmanship, being not paying attention, whatever the hell it might have been. Somebody was reliving that. And to me, it was like, don't lose that. Learn from it, understand it, and do something different. Don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah, I wonder if I can find the original article for.
I think I had it. Yeah, I actually had it up on LinkedIn a second ago, and it was, the moment shit's going to go so sideways, there's no coming back from it. It is learning that. It's ask more questions, communications, listen more, talk more, question. Yeah, and to me, it does come back to that. It's like it really does. It really goes back to, look, things are going to happen. No two ways. It's with my daughter. I will not be there all the time to pick her up. I can't be. One point in time, I'm done from this planet. All I can do is help her learn and understand from those. And it's the same thing with all of us. It's like, when that happens, what are you going to learn from it? Are you going to blame the house? Are you going to blame the car? Are you going to blame your driving skills aren't there's a level of I am a driving god BS? Or are you actually going to take a step back and go, yeah, I screwed up. I'm not going to make the same mistakes.
So just so everybody's aware, we're not giving out $10 gift cards for taking a survey afterwards. And Chris is not.
Oh, this is a fun one.
Yeah,
this pisses me off because our industry does it all the freaking time. Hey, if I can have 10 minutes of your time, I'll give you a $10 gift card. I'm like, number one, piss off. And number two, my time is more valuable than a $10 gift card, let alone the fact my information is more valuable than that $10 gift card. And so there were two parts to this. Part number one is we all have our price. I would challenge any one of us on this call or anybody else that's listening to this afterwards that we all have a price. I don't care how ethical you are. I don't care how amazing you are. I don't care if you walk on water or above the damn stuff. We all have a price. And that isn't necessarily financial. For me, it's two. It's both my daughter and it's also financial. I'm like, if somebody came up to me, parked a Ferrari F40 and maybe a Pagani and basically said that my ex from hell is the money that I owe her is going to get paid off and a few other things, we could probably have a good conversation, maybe. But if anybody harms a hair on my daughter's head, yeah, all bets are off. So, yeah, and to me, it's like, know what your value is. Know your value and the information. So what are you handing over for that $10 gift card? Same thing when you walk into a store and they're like, yeah, we'll give you $10 off if you give us your email. No, sod off. Or, type in your telephone number for extra credits. Go pound sand. Go get lost. Go jump in a lake. Take your pick.
So this is interesting. So this is it looks like a modified Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, a total amount of fun doing that one. That was a lot of fun.
With some modifications to the different side of one side is like natural and the other one is bionic. So what's the story behind this one?
A lot of this is, so actually this one was this was kind of towards, I think, the beginning of maybe the middle of the coronavirus shenanigans. We're sitting there and especially, not even just the US, but there are a lot of countries that are like beating their chests and going, we are amazing and we are fantastic and we are the best on the planet. Yet you can't keep freaking toilet paper on the damn shelves. I'm like, reality check, people. And for me, I think I turn around, as a perfect example is, you remember in the middle of this issue, I think it was New Jersey, was like, hey, we need COBOL programmers. And I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I saw that. Definitely said COBOL programmers I think it was updating, some of the central systems to keep track.
I'm like, okay, so let me understand this. We are chasing artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum mechanics, quantum module architectures. Yeah, we still got COBOL running a large chunk of the environment.
So Isaac is saying he's correct. It was I stand correct. It was New Jersey unemployment. Somebody wanted to revamp. So what's your take on it? Your video is off. I don't know if I'm the only one who
that's
can't
my
see.
fault. I'm sorry, because I was looking at the LinkedIn thing. Let me get back here.
So
there we go. Should be back.
Before kind of wrap up, if anybody has some questions or like just want to put together some topics, absolutely. So current events, what's your take on how the administration was handling this? If there's any anything as individuals, and then maybe like again, we talked about about some of the positive side effects, if you wish, But any,
Yeah.
anything positive that came out of it,
Am I
from your
allowed to get
experience?
political for a minute?
Yeah.
All right. The current administration needs to be taken out, cast in concrete, and thrown in the fucking Mariana Trench. And that's about as nice as I can possibly put it. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, it's interesting to see how we value human life. I get really frustrated with people when it's all about me. The whole thing with this coronavirus is it's not about me. Yes, you know what? If I get sick, it's gonna suck. But it's what damage can I cause to somebody else? And my thing has been, look, I'm going to restrict my movements, not just because I don't want to get sick, but I don't want to be a carrier. I don't want to be sitting here thinking or possibly knowing that I might have it and I can pass it on to you or I can pass it on to somebody else. I would literally be your death sentence. And I don't need that on my conscience. I had that many, many years ago when I was in the military, and I don't need that again in the civilian life. So for me, it really annoys the hell out of me because, yes, you know what is happening to the country absolutely sucks. No two ways about it. We're looking at some crazy amount of unemployment and a lot of people who are struggling to all hell in a handbasket. But there's a couple of things to me with that one. Number one, I think we could do a lot better and a lot differently. But it really concerns the hell out of me when it's like, well, okay, those people that are maybe more susceptible, well, you can stay at home. Those of you that are elderly, well, you can stay at home. Those of you that might get it, well, you just stay away from everybody else. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, are you actually enforcing us to critique and criteria people? I don't like it. I wish we thought about the human more. And there is a balance. I mean, there's a balance of economy versus safety. But I'm really happy that the DEF CON this year said we really want to get together, but we cannot have on our conscience one person getting sick and passing away because of this. And I applaud like Dark Tangent and those folks doing this because it sucks. We all like going out to Vegas. We all like going saying hi to everybody, but none of us want to be somebody else's problem. So I'm happy they're doing this, and we'll all do it virtual. It'll be kind of fun.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about enterprise being forced to companies just to go digital whether they want it or not?
I think it's fantastic. I love the idea. I mean, for a whole bunch of different reasons. I think we should have done it flipping 20 years ago, and it would have forced technology to be much more adaptive. I think there's a lot that we can still do from communication and collaboration that we've yet to explore. I do actually think we can do it much safer than we currently have. I think there's a lot more that we should be able to do or can do. And I think
talk about that for a second. When you say safer, what do you mean by that? Companies have invested quite a bit in VPNs and zero trust and all these other tools out there, behavior analysis and so on.
Yeah.
Do you think that we require additional layers, or what will make it safer?
I think that's part of it. I think that's definitely part of it. I think there's more. Again, it's the human training. So we'll come back to the human. It's like, how do I help you now work more effectively in somewhat of an alien environment? You're used to your home for home, but now your computer's here. How do I help you integrate that in a safer way? So I think more human training is a big part of it. I think definitely more conversation and education around the computer. Behavior analytics isn't the be all and end all. It's one piece of a layer. VPN, again, it's one piece of a layer. So there's definitely more that we could do and should do. I mean, there's some amazing technology out there that looks at, emailing authentication, that looks at how at a memory level things should work and do work. There's stuff, if we actually looked effectively at augmented intelligence, I think we could do a better job of putting better tech in place to do that, and it will help us a lot more effectively. And quite honestly, I think we could do a better job of helping people actually shut down and turn that technology off. I mean, we're all saying we're working more. It's because, it's almost more convenient. But I think we also need to turn that around and go, how can I help you actually step away from the computer more effectively at times?
So like just define boundaries between work and life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, just disable access between, between 5.
The challenge
5
on
p.m.
that one is, I mean, you know as well as I do, some of our work, unfortunately, it just doesn't stop. It just keeps on going.
Right. So, do you find there's a place now for new technologies, new security technologies that would have an outcome just from companies going virtual?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's, there's definitely more conversations happening on the training side of it. There's obviously a ton more conversations around like secure media transmission, securing architecture, looking at where data is, looking at where integrity of data is. I had a really good conversation at 2:00 this morning with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about encryption and how to make some of that more effective than it currently is. And how to manage it more effectively, how to do some interesting work with it. There's some fantastic stuff there. Some of the intelligence stuff, there's a company I'm going to hang out with and do some fun things with actual artificial intelligence, proper intelligence. And so putting that into effect in our home life and building that into like the home hub and the work hub and the transportation hub, I think there's some fantastic advances that we could do there more effectively. Again, it's how do you validate that the person that's on the keyboard is actually me? And so, there's a lot to be done on that, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, just gonna wrap it up. We're just at top of the hour. You're just positive. First of all, I want to thank you for the time again. It's been
Thanks for asking me.
pleasure.
It's totally awesome being.
Hopefully, this will too shall pass, and we'll meet again in New York City, and we'll be able to have a non-virtual drink and in close proximity. What's your kind of positive? So I always finish up with saying that we've seen tremendous collaboration in the healthcare space, right? So people coming together from all over the world to research, the COVID-19, tremendous, support of the healthcare workers and so on. Do you feel that, like at least in the cybersecurity, professional space, is there any outcome or positive outcome from all of this?
I think I hope that there's a better appreciation for people who are supporting all of this. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, that has been a huge upheaval from a centralized or semi-centralized system supporting a workforce that was at least in the same place to everybody being scattered to the four winds. I hope there is a better appreciation for the support teams that actually look after all this. And actually not just a better appreciation, but like, okay, how can we help them become more effective? What can we do to enable them? And this is the stuff from like anything from like the deception stuff or the learning stuff or the endpoint stuff and everything else. But my hope is we come out of there and rather than blaming the support people, we actually go, hey, got it, understand it. How can we work together more effectively so that everybody wins?
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
No,
thank you all
David.
for joining and much appreciated.
Thank you, everybody.
And, looking forward to seeing you all next week. And again, hopefully this will all end soon and we can all come back into physical events. So all welcome. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated. Take care, sir.
Yeah, take care.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.